Paul says that the singular seed of Abraham is a reference to Jesus, the Messiah. This statement has often struck folks as completely bizarre, a totally unjustified eisegesis. John Sailhamer points out, however, that the Pentateuch uses intertextuality to focus the identity of the seed of Abraham down to the king from the line of Judah. We start in Genesis 12, 1-3. Now the Lord said to Abram, Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you, and I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you, and make your name great, that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who curses you I will curse, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. According to Genesis 22, the promise to Abraham comes through his seed. Genesis 22, 17-18. I will surely bless you, and will multiply your offspring as the stars of heaven and the sand that is on the seashore. And your seed shall possess the gate of his enemies, and in your seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. In Abraham's seed the nation shall be blessed. The promise to Abraham becomes the promise through Abraham's offspring. And at this point it's inconclusive whether the seed promise is singular or plural or both. Now in Genesis 27-29, in Isaac's blessing, this gets applied to Jacob personally. Let people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be lord over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you. And that latter phrase is a quotation from Genesis 12. And this theme is picked up in Genesis 49. Genesis 49, 8-10. Judah, your brothers shall praise you. Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons shall bow down before you. Judah is a lion's cub. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He stooped down. He crouched as a lion, and as a lioness, who dares rouse him? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until tribute comes to him, and to him shall be the obedience of the peoples. Now the fact that this is in Genesis 49 is quite important, because the Pentateuch is really a single work written by Moses, and it has a single literary structure. Genesis 1-11 is a collection of small narratives, stitched together by short poems. Genesis 12 to Deuteronomy 34 is a collection of large narratives stitched together by large poems. And the four big poems are Genesis 49, Jacob's blessing, Exodus 15, the Song of the Sea, Numbers 23-24, Balaam's blessing, and Deuteronomy 32-33, the Song of Moses and then Moses' blessing. So the fact that this is in one of the big poems of the Pentateuch points to it as part of the major theme of the book. And this verse in Genesis 49:9 is picked up in another one of those poetic themes in Numbers 24. Water shall flow from Israel's buckets, and his seed, that is Israel's seed, shall be in many waters. His king, Israel's king, shall be higher than Gog, and his kingdom shall be exalted. God brings him out of Egypt, and is for him like the horns of the wild ox. He shall eat up the nations, his adversaries, shall break their bones in pieces, and pierce them through with his arrows. He crouched, he lay down like a lion, like a lioness who will rouse him up. Blessed are those who bless you, and cursed are those who curse you. Now you'll note that I said his king, that is Israel's king, shall be higher than Gog. Now most translations will say Agag, the king of the Amalekites, but in fact only the Masoretic text says Agag. The Septuagint and all other ancient texts say Gog. Now the fact that this was the original reading is demonstrated by the fact that in Ezekiel 38-39, Gog, the king of Magog, is said to be one whom God spoke of in the former days. And Numbers 24 says that this prophecy is for the latter days. And so Gog is the ultimate enemy of the king of Zion. Now what we see is that the practice of quotation runs like a golden thread through the Pentateuch. The seed of Abraham is understood to be a king from the line of Judah who will lead Israel on a new exodus and subdue the nations. And the way we know that after the text mentions the king, that the his still refers to the text, is because it concludes with that quotation from Genesis 49. He crouched, he lay down like a lion, and so on. And then the promise that was made to Abraham in his singular seed in Genesis 22 is applied to this king with, blessed are those who bless you, and cursed are those who curse you. Now, this isn't just a New Testament understanding. It's not just Paul who says that that seed is the Messiah, the king from Judah. In fact, this was the understanding of Solomon, because in Psalm 72:17, Solomon says concerning the king, "May his name endure forever, his fame continue as long as the sun. May people be blessed in him, all nations call him blessed." And so this is a phrase from the promise of the seed applied personally to the king. And Jeremiah does the same thing in Jeremiah 4:1-2. "If you return, O Israel, declares the Lord, to me you should return. If you remove your detestable things from my presence and do not waver, and if you swear, as the Lord lives, in truth and justice and in righteousness, the nation shall be blessed in him, and in him they shall glory." The him here is singular. It can't be Israel because God is speaking to Israel in the first person. The language of justice and righteousness is characteristic Davidic language, both in Isaiah and in Jeremiah. And it's actually used for the Messianic king later in the book. Jeremiah 23:5, "Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will raise up for David a righteous branch, and he shall reign as a king, and deal wisely, and shall execute justice and righteousness in the land." Now let's return to Numbers 24, because having understood that the seed is the Messiah, we can understand something about the Messiah from Numbers 24. It makes links between the king from the line of Judah, Adam, and the seed of the woman that was promised in Genesis chapter 3. Genesis 1:28 says, "God blessed them, and God said to them, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and the birds of the heavens and every living thing that moves on the earth." Now, dominion is a pretty uncommon word, but it's used of the Messiah in Numbers 24. Numbers 24:19. "One from Jacob shall exercise dominion and destroy the survivors of cities." It's no accident that this same chapter refers to an expanded and glorified Garden of Eden. Adam was meant to subdue or conquer the earth, and that's what the king from the line of Judah will do. There are gardens beside the rivers, just as Adam was meant to follow the rivers out and imitate God in planting sacred gardens. That's why in Ezekiel 47 we see that in the eschaton, the fountain of life wells up at the mercy seat of the temple, and it flows out of the temple. And as it breaks and spreads to the earth, trees of life grow up beside it. Now furthermore, Genesis 3:15 says, "I will put enmity between you," that is, the serpent or the Nakash, the burning one, "and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall crush your head," that is, the seed will crush the serpent's head, "and you, the serpent, will bruise the seed's heel." Numbers 24:17 makes allusion to this. Balaam says, "I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not near. A star shall come out of Jacob. A scepter shall rise out of Israel. It shall crush the forehead of Moab and break down all the sons of Seth." Now remember that scepter comes straight out of Genesis 49. The scepter will not depart from Judah. Now we're told that the king will crush the head of Moab. Why Moab? Well, it's because Moab's birth in Genesis 19 calls us back to the birth of Canaan in Genesis 9. There are allusions between Genesis 19 and Genesis 9. In Genesis 9, Noah drinks wine in Sabbath rest. The drunkenness can just refer to getting tired and going to sleep. But the wine here is Noah's exaltation to kingship. He drinks it in Sabbath rest. And he drinks it at the top of a mountain. But Lot goes under the earth. He was supposed to go to the mountain with Abraham, but he goes under the earth and he drinks wine, gets really drunk, and has incest with his daughters. Now Moab and Canaan are symbolically linked, because at the birth of Canaan, Noah predicts that Canaan will be made a slave of slaves to his brothers, and Noah draws on the curse of the serpent in Genesis 3. Remember that in Genesis 3, God does not say, "Cursed are you, Adam," but he does say, "Cursed are you, the serpent," and just as Noah will say, "Cursed is Canaan." Canaan is identified with the serpent, and Moab is identified with Canaan. So Moab is a symbolic way of referring to the serpent, that the king from the line of Judah, the seed of the woman, the seed of Abraham, will crush the head of the serpent. So why is Moab associated with the sons of Seth? the sons of Seth are righteous according to Genesis 5. Well, this has to do with Genesis 6, 1-4. That's when the sons of Seth, and this takes the place of their fall in the narrative, the sons of Seth enter into a marriage alliance with the wicked sons of God, which is a reference to divine beings on the heavenly council, and these are evil angels. That unholy union looks toward Genesis 9, where Ham produced Canaan through the rape of his mother in an attempt to foment a coup against Noah. Now, the way we know this is because to expose your father's nakedness is a reference in Leviticus to maternal incest. But only this can really explain why it's Canaan and not Ham who's cursed. This was likely at the birth of Canaan when Noah uttered this curse. And Ham's attempt was to foment a coup against Noah. The robe symbolizes kingship. Noah had just drank wine in Sabbath rest. God has exalted him. Noah drinks wine, and Ham attempts to expose his father's nakedness, to take off his robe, to foment a coup. And this looks further into Genesis 19, where Lot's daughters produce Moab and Ammon through incest with their father. So what we learn here is that Eve is promised a seed. She's promised offspring. And we're told the story of that offspring through the story of Abraham. And Abraham is promised a seed. And that seed is then associated with the person of Jacob. And then it's associated with the family of Judah. And then it's associated with a king from the line of Judah whose kingdom will be greater than that of Gog. And this king will crush the head of Moab, or the serpent. He'll bless the nations. He'll lead a new exodus because God says he will bring him, the king, out of Egypt. And he will re-establish paradise. So what we need to learn from this is that the apostles knew what they were talking about. They weren't fools. And before we say, oh, that's a ridiculous